Well, welcome everyone. Thanks everyone for attending our webinar, Agentforce Myths and Facts for Nonprofits. Very excited to see some old faces and some new faces here. In a moment, we'll dive into the main content, but first here's our agenda. So we're gonna go through introductions. We'll talk through our AI Wheel of Agility, Agentforce Myths and Facts, demo time, and then we'll talk about our Arkus Agentforce Accelerator. So to the housekeeping items, if you notice on the right-hand side of the screen, there is a question and answer panel to the top right of the window, and you can communicate with us by asking a question there. Those questions are only visible to us, the hosts. We will monitor questions as we go, and we have set aside dedicated time for a Q&A at the end of our session. The chat function is read only, and our behind the scenes team will be sharing resources out through that. So if you want to communicate with us, please use the Q&A panel. So a couple things to remember. We will be sending out the recording to everyone after this call. If you see the question mark sign in the top right corner of your screen, that is where you can submit your questions. Any questions that you ask will be answered at the end during our Q&A session. Screen sharing may lag for a second, but don't be alarmed. We got it under control. And ways to contact Arkus, you can send a request in the question panel. You can fill out our contact us form on the arkusinc.com website, or you can email me directly. You will find my email in the chat. So what you're seeing on the screen is information about Arkus. We are a Salesforce consulting partner celebrating our 15th anniversary within the Salesforce ecosystem. We've grown from a team of 4 to a team of more than 80 experts. And as you can see from our stats, with more than 2,900 projects completed for more than 800 clients. In those projects, we average a client satisfaction score of 4.9 out of 5 stars, which is extremely important to us. Our clients include industry leaders in the nonprofit, education, healthcare, and arts and cultures industries, and many more. Today, I'm joined by Andrew Fretwell and Jason Atwood, who will be leading us through most of the meat of the conversation today. So with that, I'd like to turn this over to Jason and Andrew.
Hey, Andrew.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to my TED Talk.
Can't wait.
You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Andrew Fretwell. I'm a sales director here at Arkus. I'm also an 8-time certified Salesforce consultant. And most importantly, the first 10 years of my career are here in New York as a non-profiteer, working at a variety of nonprofits, and was actually a part of 2 different migrations from legacy systems to Salesforce. And I'm happy to be joined here today by Jason Atwood.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jason Atwood. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Arkus. I will be doing some talking today, and as of 9 o'clock this morning, I'll also be doing some demoing. So you got me for all sorts of things. I won't drop my certifications because it'll just embarrass Andrew, which we won't want to do that. All right, so I think we want to kick in first by doing a poll question. So we're going to put a poll out there via the webinar. It should pop up on your screen. You should see it. Our first thing we're asking is, are you currently using Agentforce? We're just kind of going to set the stage, where everybody is, who's using what, how it's being used. So as you know, we want to get to know you and what you're using. So as you fill out that, okay, looks like people are answering. Great. We're getting some yeses. That's good. Some I don't knows. No one doesn't know if they're using it or not. That's great. Great. We'd like to see people answering that. So we're going to go over today, as you answer that, we're going to go over some of the things we've sort of like what we're talking about as the big myths. And we're going to have Andrew sort of be the myth buster or the myth reader, and I'll be sort of the myth buster, if you will. So start us off with the big myth.
Yeah, so the big myth, and this myth is made up of some smaller myths here, but the big myth that is, I think, getting repeated across much of the nonprofit sector is the following. We are just not ready for Agentforce. Jason, what do you say to folks who say that to you?
It's interesting because, Agentforce has only been out for a year. For those who don't know what Agentforce is, I hope it's Salesforce's agent offering that's built into their into the platform, but came out last year in October, right, at Dreamforce, which we're at Dreamforce coming up again next. So hasn't even been out for a year. And we've gone through a couple of these iterations of it, but when the tide has turned, and I think sometime in May or June of this year, where we started to see a lot of our clients, prospects are talking about it and using it. So I think we're at the point where we're saying to everybody, yeah, you're ready for it. You're ready for Agentforce, and we're going to go through some of the other myths and try to bust them. We'll also go through what we're talking about today, or one of our talking points around Agentforce and AI is really how to implement it into your system, how to implement it at your organization. And so we came up with this like graphic, an idea of really talking about the AI wheel of, or the AI wheel of AI agility. It's a lot of AI in there. And really this starts with how to identify where the pain points are. This is the biggest point, because what you're going to implement with Agentforce or with any AI solution is really solving for pain, right? So look for your users and find where their pain is, and sometimes that's in time, like what takes them a lot of time, or maybe something that's just very complex. So identifying those users and getting those pain points, super important. Second one, obviously you're going to look for the scope. What are we going to implement? And there's a lot of studies out now saying a lot of POCs kind of die on the vine, and this is part of it, right? What is the scope of what you're trying to build out? What is the beginning and the end of it? But also, what are the guardrails? And I think the thing we talk to our clients about AI and Agentforce is that, like anything, like an employee, you give them guardrails, right? You say, here's what you can and cannot do within our organization, right? You're an intern, you don't get the keys to the entire place or the passwords to the bank account. You have guardrails, and Agentforce also has given guardrails. So you kind of have to start to think of like, what do I want the agent to do, and where do I want to start and stop? Second thing, or the third part of the wheel, is really connecting to the data, right? Data is the thing that makes AI so important. A lot of that data is going to be inside of your Salesforce instance. This is where we're seeing a lot of the power of Agentforce, is because it gets to access data that you already have, that you've been putting into Salesforce for a long time. But what is the other stuff? What's maybe some of the institutional knowledge, or raw data, or PDFs, or SharePoint data that you need to get in there? So you're going to connect up to that data, maybe using something like Data Cloud to get that in and feed the agent, so it becomes smarter, right? So it can answer the questions that only that agent knows about your organization. And then this is a big point. You've got to get into testing. Testing is something that when you're building very functional things in Salesforce, you kind of go, it's A or B, it's going to work or not. But with AI, obviously, the answers are different every time. I mean, I'm going to demo today. I'm hoping to get some of the same answers, but it's going to be a little different, because it's artificial intelligence. It's talking, it's thinking, and so it's going to answer things differently. In that point, you then have to test more, and test with your users, right? So test with all the people who are going to be using the platform or using your agent. And then lastly, this is the thing to bring you back into the wheel. You kind of adjust, right? Agentforce and AI solutions really need to go through the cycle over and over and over again to get better and better. As we've launched things for clients, we launched things internally, we're constantly tweaking it and adding to it and making it better as we get that feedback. So this is sort of our way of thinking about how you go through the getting into the AI world and using your AI wheel of agility. So that's just to start us off. Then let's go back into our myths and let's see if we can bust a few. What's our first one?
Yeah, so that all sounds well and good, Jason, and appreciate that that there is a real process that's not a scary one to undertake Agentforce. But isn't AI such a paradigm shifting technology that before you get started, you need to really get all of the conceivable stakeholders together in one place to come to an agreement around what the AI strategy for the organization is going to be before we do anything?
Yeah, I think this is the one that's probably changed the most in the last 12 months or 2 years since we had our ChatGPT moment, because I think a few years ago that was what we were hearing was, oh, I got to stop. I can't do anything until I get my AI strategy together. Well, we're now kind of going to our clients and working with them and saying, like, you need to go through a crawl, walk, run approach. But crawling doesn't mean committees and documents. Crawling means coming up with tangible things that you can launch, you can use, and bringing them to your users and implementing them. So AI strategy is great. It is something that you kind of can do in parallel to while you do the other things, right? While you implement. But if you're waiting for the, the perfect AI strategy to drop out of the sky, and that's where you're going to start, you're never really going to get there. So we're advising clients at this point not to start with the AI strategy, but to start with actual functional things.
Interesting. Well, even that being said, Jason, sometimes I feel like, we're utilizing Salesforce, we have it for CRM purposes, maybe also for marketing or some other things. And it feels like we just have enough technical skills to master what we're currently doing. And some days it doesn't always even feel like that. Don't we need more technical people involved in this beyond what we already have in our organization to actually start taking advantage of these really sophisticated innovations?
Yeah, that's an easy myth to bust, because Agentforce was built on the Salesforce platform like anything else that's in the platform, right? When we talk to, when we build out solutions, you're building out with clicks. You're still building out on the tools and the things that you know inside of Salesforce. So it's still, clicking and building and typing. It's not coding. You do not have to build your own foundational model or get all your NVIDIA, chips in there. This is built on the platform that and it also, so it inherits all the functionality, so you can use it and build it just like you can use and build anything else on the platform. So you don't need to be a research scientist to build out Agentforce or to build out, these using agents and AI solutions on the Salesforce platform. So we can bust that one.
Okay. But even if we have the right, even if we don't need additional personnel or skills that we're bringing in-house, something that just makes, I think, everyone here really nervous is just the idea that to get higher efficiency and higher performance, that means that we need to put our data into the big pool of training data for large language models or any other associated security risks that would come along with utilizing Agentforce.
Yeah, and that was, again, these are some of these are a little bit old in terms of, but I think they're still kind of in the ecosystem or in the ether. Realistically, you made a choice when you purchased Salesforce. You went through that, that decision, you got it up and running. You said, we're going to put our data in the cloud. I've been in Salesforce a long time, so I know where we had to actually talk about putting your data in the cloud and like what that meant and was that scary and could you do it and who owns it and where is it? But like in those days, we kind of went through that process of like, but you trust Salesforce with your data. And in the same ways you trust Salesforce with your data and all the stuff you're putting in there today, you can trust that Salesforce has also built out their data model and their security and their permissions on top of that as well. So you're inheriting all that security and permissioning and data security and using the Einstein trust layer as well. So you don't need to worry about as much. That's why you use Salesforce, is because you trust them to do with your data. And that data is not going over to the foundational models. They've built in things, won't get into the details, but they built in ways to protect it. And so that you're not giving up your data.
All right. Well, finally, even with all that, I guess I just sort of feel like, I see the Agentforce commercials on TV and, there's a cute one with Matthew McConaughey, at a restaurant, another one at like a clothing store, one where he's like buying a house, another in a hospital, all these industries that Salesforce seems to really be emphasizing where Agentforce can be helpful. But I didn't see anything for nonprofits. And shouldn't we just sort of like wait another 5 years? And, we're used to being 5 to 10 years behind the curve on technology. Shouldn't we just sort of allow that to also be the case here for Agentforce?
Yeah, this is the one that I'm most happy to bust, is that there are plenty of use cases and real life use cases for nonprofits. The beauty of Agentforce is it's built into the platform. It works on all the industry clouds out of the box. It works on those clouds. So it works in nonprofit cloud. It works with financial services. It works with health. It works with education. It works in every instance. And when you start to think about what digital labor means and what it means for your organization, like, wouldn't you like to take some of the things that you're doing now and make them go faster, or make them easier, or be able to have your people do more with their time? You know, that productivity gain, which we're seeing, and we're going to go over a couple examples here, but the type of productivity gains we're seeing with our clients is massive, and is changing the way they're thinking about their work and of how they use these tools. So here's just some of them. So just to throw out some, all the names I'm taking out, and I'm going to give this as 2 different types of Agentforce agents. There are 2 different types. There's kind of like an external one. Think of that as public facing, and that's, you know, I'm going to show 2 examples in my demo today. I'm going to show 2 examples, one external, one internal. But think of the external one as, you know, it is talking to somebody else on the outside. So it's that, you know, chatbot, if you will. So we have an organization that is taking this process that would take almost 30 days to get back answers because of all the complexity and the data and the knowledge and the looking things up. And we're taking that from a 30-day process down to 3 minutes. And if you think of like just how much people time it took to get from point A to point B from a 30-day process down to 3 minutes, I mean, it's massive savings. Another great example is using Agentforce as a front line for help, right? To answer all the questions. Again, the demo I'm going to do today is going to show how you can, you know, stand up an agent that can handle a lot of the stuff that's coming in and help you scale. So this music festival is going to use it for an event, a pretty big event. I hope I get tickets. Andrew, you going to get me tickets?
Working on it.
All right, very good. You know, another one for common things for people coming and going, right? Where do I go? How do I do this? How much do things cost? There's so much stuff that we want to answer. But it's hard. You don't want them necessarily going to a human that have to answer those questions. But that's where agents and Agentforce are great, because they can answer them, but they can answer them in a sort of the way you want to ask them, as opposed to having to be perfect. And then this one's great, like intake, taking, and think of for all the nonprofits on, a lot of you probably have the use case of taking data in, right? That I have to get people to fill out stuff. We're seeing a lot of use cases where the intake, right, getting people to put in data so they can get into our system, they're using Agentforce as the front end to intake that data, because that's a lot of what you're trying to do, right? I'm trying to get them to fill out something, and so this is a great way to do that. On the internal side, this is the employee-facing side. This is like you being inside of Salesforce itself. This is a great one for actually evaluating and looking at different applications inside of Salesforce and evaluating them and going, this one's better, or this one needs prioritization. So think of it as sort of a smart, you know, a smart person, a smart digital worker inside that can look at your data inside of Salesforce and make decisions and kind of make recommendations. This one's great, right? So doing communications is one of the sort of low-hanging fruits of Agentforce. And I will show an example again today, so hang in there, where, you know, you can communicate outward. You know, sometimes, yes, writing an email is not the hardest thing to do, but sometimes just even getting that template or getting that first shot and having someone just sort of do it for you in 2 seconds, and then you can sort of tweak it, it's huge time savings. And then this one is using it a lot for actually using multiple agents inside their Salesforce instance to do a lot of the sort of, you know, helping me understand what's going on inside of Salesforce. And not only from like a summarization of accounts or contacts, which you can do great out of the box. Again, I will show that in a minute or two, hopefully. But also you can feed it in information about your organization. And I want that to be like a thing. You can feed it in organizational data, right? Your handbook or your, you know, HR, all that sort of stuff. And then it can answer those questions. And you can get to the point where you're helping your internal employees get the information they want without having to go ask somebody else. So a lot of the other examples, oh, and this one is actually great. They're actually using the voice mode and being able to capture notes and things and follow-ups using the agent. So the agent can then go and take that, you know, that voice memo and then propagate it to the right places, fill out 2 or 3 things at a time. If you think of some of the things you're doing, if you're thinking through your examples in your organization, think of the things that take 4 or 5 steps to do, right? I have to do this, then this, then this, then this. Like, that's a great take for where to put an agent, because an agent can do all of that. That's one of the biggest things. If you get nothing out of this workshop or webinar, is that Agentforce can manipulate and do things within Salesforce. It can write to records, it can read from records, it can communicate and connect things. And that's a lot of the time saving that you can see out of it. So, and I mean, another Agentforce plug for us. All right, so we've gone through. Before I get ready to demo, I haven't demoed in a while, so I'm gonna shake it off or get a little warm up a little bit here. We're gonna throw out our second poll question of the day, which is, what is your organization's biggest obstacle? So we're going to list off a bunch of different obstacles for you to figure out. We're giving you some choices here. We're giving you, they're coming in, great. Cultural, is it regulatory, is it technology? Do you think is it financial? Again, we'll have time at the end if you want to bring your questions, maybe we'll be able to answer them. But like, what are the things you're seeing as the things that are stopping you from bringing in any AI tool or something like Agentforce? So good, we're getting a lot. It looks pretty even. Looks like it's trending towards cultural. That's very good. Like I will say, as one of maybe the other myths is the stand-up of these things and how long they take. I have found, as I have driven a lot of our AI initiatives here at Arkus, that getting people to use the tools is much harder than it is to build them and to deploy them. So getting that sort of mind shift of thinking AI first, or thinking this tool can do this for me, and maybe I don't have to do it myself. All right, great, thank you. Oh, okay. Next up, all right, it's all on me to demo. I'm gonna get my little script up here. I'm gonna drop off camera because you don't wanna see my demo face. Get it? Okay, fine. I thought that was funny. There needs to be a laugh-o-meter. So I'm going to flip over to this. I can see, everybody can see it. So what is this? This is just our demo site, actually built, not by me. I'll give all the credit to Scott. Thank you, Scott. This is great. This is an Experience Cloud, so it's just demo. It's, Experience Cloud site. That's Salesforce's sort of website technology, content management system. And on it has an agent. We have a fake site, science center here. I think we based it out in New York because that's where our headquarters are. So I'm going to start off by just clicking on the agent little thing. This is what everybody sees. You see this little thing in the bottom. Well, what is this? Well, let's start with just some basics. Like, okay, what time are you open tomorrow? And we're going to make sure these work. Good. So Claudia, the agent, is responding. What's really nice, and when you start to play with this stuff, is how smart it can be, right? This is the power of AI and agents, is they don't have to be, they can make just choices. They can think about things. So what time are you open tomorrow? It knows what day it is, and it knows that tomorrow is the 26th, right? So it says, okay, and what about the time? So actually, I'm going to ask it to give me the times, even though it did. So it says, it answered again. That's great. I had already asked that. It already answered it for me. But then I can ask like questions about like ticketing and things, like say, so how much for 2 adults and 2 kids? And let's see what it says. So again, so it looks at the pricing and it says, it calculates it out for me. So it says, here's the total. So it says, here's the prices. Adult tickets are $31 each. So it does the math. That's kind of cool, like that it does some math for me and tells me what one of the kids is actually 21. So let's see, I guess I'm not a kid anymore. The adult ticket. Now look at that. So I like this example. And again, every time I do it, it surprises me a little bit more. Right? So I didn't have to say recalculate or whatever. It just said, okay, we'll take it. And it says, all right, so now 3 adult tickets. Here's your total. Need anything else? Great. And then I can ask for things like maybe just directions. How do I get there from Times Square, which is where our offices are, right? So it can then go look to its knowledge. And again, all this knowledge is fed in through, or a lot of the knowledge is fed in through Data Cloud, but even give me directions, right? These are like really nice examples. It knows how to get there. It knows where it is. It's giving me the 1 to 2. 1, 2, 3, 4 for my knowledge. Also, at the end of this, you can actually print the whole thing, so like you could with most of these things. And then maybe I want to ask about parking. What about parking, right? Okay. So again, I'm asking very like just quick answers, but I'm not like I'm not giving a lot of information. So it says, okay, here's the costs, here's the cost of the parking, here's the access, valet, what's available. And then, I can actually then, so that's like, okay, it's answering basic questions. I think these are kind of fun. But what about if I say other things like, maybe I want to know, let's go to the example of it knows more about me. And I say, what have I attended in the past? Now at this point, we're going to do a little hand waving because it's going to ask me like to kind of authenticate. In this case, I'm just going to give it an email address and say, hey, I'm going to look you up. Think of this. This is obviously on top of Salesforce. It's then looking at my record, right? It's going to authenticate me. Say, okay. And now it can pull up actual examples of things that I have done, right? It's pulled up two of my past events. Oh, that's cool, right? So it says, hey, do you want me to find some similar events? So I could say, how about things next month? So I just want to ask, so it's like saying, hey, maybe you sign you up for some stuff. I'm going to ask it. And now, again, just asking a very basic question. How about next month? It knows what month it is. It knows what next month. And then look, pulls up a couple of these great examples, right? So it's pulling up records. It knows what's out there. And then it says, hey, do you want to sign up for these? Well, yes, I do. And this is another example of where Agentforce can manipulate data inside of Salesforce. This is taking the work that maybe a human would have to do. And look at that. It asked me to pick the ones I want to sign up for. Let's pick 1 and 3. Great. So I just said, I want you to sign up for this one and that one. Oh, and because it's smart, it says you've already signed up for the T-Rex test, and I've registered for you for the bio here. I don't know, this always amazes me, but I like think that's like a great chat session. That's great service. I got, I was able to ask questions. I was able to sign up for stuff. I was able to get all I didn't have to be very, like I'm giving you 1 or 2 word things. So kind of fun. But then you think, well, what if I want to do that guardrail where I want to hand off to another person, right? Hand off to a human. Maybe I want to talk to a human about something at this point. And that's where this is a nice, the Agentforce features are nice because it can hand you off internally to a ticket to inside somebody else. So let's go, can I talk to an agent? Well, yeah, see if it says this was, might say I'm an agent. Oh, there you go. So it says 1 moment. It's actually going to move me over to the call center. Now I've turned myself in, and you can see here, I'm now logged into Salesforce, and I pull up my thing. You can see here there's a guest who's waiting to talk to me, and when I click that, all things being equal and all things being good, immediately it drops me right over into the conversation. What's really nice about this is the entire conversation is there, right? So all the things that the agent had, that it took all the great time and how it answered, it's all ready for me to review as a human. I can go, okay, this is all good. And I can now take over and, and finish out that conversation. Hey, it is Jason. How do you want me to help you? Whatever, right? And then now that conversation is between human and human, and very seamless and really nice. And if you're someone who goes to customer service a lot, you'll notice that's a nice handoff, right? Feels like I got good information, and now I'm into the Salesforce world. All right, so I've showed some of the external. I'm going to now show some of the internal stuff. I'm going to drop over to, actually, this was the person who I logged in as. I'm just going to refresh the screen here and show you. So, no tricks up my sleeve here. One of the things you can see here is that those are the things it did on the inside. If you look at, here's the record, the contact record for the person who was, who was on the outside, but you can see that they've been signed up for those events. So that's where I think we're seeing a lot of the power of Agentforce is it can not only do the things on the outside and have the conversations and tell you about parking and do math and whatever, but can also manipulate and do files. So here it is, signed me up. You can see it signed me up for both for the 2 events, right? Here's the upcoming events. It knew that I was on one. But there's some other stuff we could show off while we're in the world of Salesforce. Show off the internal agents. And I think, these are some of the things that when you start to think about how you could use it, think about how you could use some of the internal agents. So here, I'm going to click on the Agentforce. Right up comes, the Agentforce. This is the one that's built in. Again, same product, same thing, but this is the built-in version. And I can do a bunch of stuff, right? So I could summarize this contact record. It's a nice little example. It's great. It says, it can look at all the data and it can give you a nice summary. So you can summarize contacts, you can summarize opportunities, you can summarize accounts. It gives you a nice little update. And you can say what, but you can use some of that sort of smart stuff too, like what events would he like to attend? Right. So now I'm asking agent to kind of go out there. Oh, okay. See what future events. See, this is where you have to be sometimes events. And would he be interested in? All right, let me try it. Okay, we're gonna hope. This is always fun. Love doing live demos. It's been a while. It's a lot of fun. Great. So this is the went on. It went and looked at his past attendance, the contact record. It then pulled up a bunch of them and says, here's the one that this person might want to attend, right? So again, this is sort of nice AI, right? A really artificial intelligence, looks at what's upcoming, looks what's happening next month, and it pulls up a bunch of them. But here's kind of fun. You could say, draft me an email inviting him. And of course, I'm typing it in. Now it goes off, throws up the email, right? Builds me the nice email, shows me all the details, throws in the events that I thought about, right? And literally writes a nice little email, but maybe it's a little long for me. So I say, make it shorter. So if you're a ChatGPT user, you use these tools, you can kind of give it stays in context with what you're talking about, and then it can answer things and do things as it knows where you are and what it's done. And hopefully it'll then throw a beautiful, much shorter email. Okay, great. So it went bulleted, it put in my stuff, it thinks I'm Scott, which is true, and then leaving me right here with the send email button. I just click a button and it sends the email to the contact. Sure. Great. Throws it into the body, puts the whole thing. I can customize from there. I could say, I don't use best regards, I use thanks. I could drop some emojis if I wanted to, and then go ahead and send that off. So pretty cool little example of what you could use Agentforce for. But one more, because this is actually the one that you can see some other examples here too, like it's asking if I should sign up for. So if I wanted to, as a user, I could say sign the person up for these as well, and it could go do it, just like you saw it happen on the front end. It could do it internally. So again, as you think through your Agentforce examples, what are things that people are doing that it would be great if a tool, an agent, an intelligent agent could help them do faster and easier. Lastly, because this is Andrew's favorite, I go to something called Review My Day. And this little built-in tool allows you to, it goes through all the stuff on your calendar and all the tasks, and it kind of builds it out for you as like a little summary. So something you could like start today, but you can see, right, it's pulled in it's pulled in my Agentforce demos, pulled in my meeting with Brent, and it's pulled in some outstanding tasks I have, right? And just kind of really built it all together in a nice little view for me as an internal user, right? So lots of great examples. I hope some of that made sense. Again, if you have questions about that, you can answer that in the question and answer section. But now I'll come back on camera along with my buddy Andrew. There he is. Did you get your day reviewed?
Love that. That's my jam right there.
All right. Well, now it's your real jam.
Yes. Yeah. So for anyone who's interested in, what we've been talking about here, we are currently involved in a number of Agentforce projects and discussions here, and we actually offer an accelerator. It's like a 4 to 6 week engagement, and it really consists of understanding where helping you understand where the AI is already embedded in your Salesforce, developing some use cases that could be of the highest value to your organization, as well as understanding what the general, data setup would look like for really putting you in a place to take full advantage of these tools, and then developing a roadmap based on that along with you. But this engagement is not just limited to the theoretical. You actually just saw the meeting prep agent or the day planner agent is something that we would include in this kind of an accelerator. We could also do other ones like that, but specifically something that's internal and really focused on being an assistant to your current Salesforce users, so that you're not just talking about getting started in Agentforce, right? You actually are getting your first agent as a part of this. So if this is something that you're interested in, or you generally are thinking you want to get started in Agentforce, but just need a little bit of a more specific outlay of steps to get started, I highly recommend you get in contact with us here at Arkus, so we can accelerate the beginning of that journey here.
Great. All right. So I know my favorite time is question and answer. I'll ask Berkeley to come back on and to be our question and answer person. We'll see if we can stump Andrew or I.
Yes. So first of all, thanks guys for the demo of the conversation. I hope you all found that to be helpful. I can't remember who I was talking to at a world tour last year, but I know the first question was like, how can I use it? And I hope this allows people to conceptualize good use cases of Agentforce. All right, so let's go to the questions. All right. So one of your internal examples is using an agent for record summarization. A use case I have for a potential agent is for my internal users to ask how many records are in category X or how many records include Y, rather than telling them to or creating for them a one-off report. Is this a use case that can be pursued with an agent?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the, again, Agentforce runs within Salesforce. It has access to whatever you give it access to. It is permission based. And you can build agents that can look to data, right? So the functionality behind Agentforce is actually built in flows. And if you know anything about flows, you can get to almost everything with a flow. So that would be, you would basically write an agent, build out your templates, build out your prompts, connected to a flow that could read in that data, but then make that artificial choice around it, right? So then to sort of do the comparison of this or that. There is another demo we do that is, find me the people who are, connected this campaign, who did this. You give that to the agent, it will go find that data, and then you can say, okay, now do something with it, like go add it to this other campaign or to build it into this thing. So it can both read a lot of data, make decisions, and then put it somewhere else. So yes, the answer is yes. The long-winded answer is yes.
All right, next question. Is the data we store in Salesforce used to train the AI model? If so, what are the protections in place to ensure our organizational data is not showing up in an AI answer for another organization?
Great, that's actually a great question. So the answer is no, just straight up no, 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 no. There is, just to be clear, so no one says I said otherwise, there is this thing that Salesforce has built on top of or between Salesforce and Agent and the Agentforce and Salesforce data and the foundational models. One other nice thing about Agentforce, just to throw it out there, is you can bring your own model. Like you can pick if you don't like this model, I think this model is better, you can literally just pick which one you want to use. And I think they list out a bunch of them. But as part of that sort of foundation, and they show this in their slides, I chose not to use it in their slides because I don't want Benioff. I think it's his birthday today too. I don't want Benioff getting mad at me, but there's a trust layer where they take any of the data that has personal information and they don't allow it to go out. They kind of obfuscate it before it goes to the models. They also, in all the APIs and the deals between them and the foundational models, it's explicit that none of your data gets used for training. So the answer is no, and it is highly, highly protected. So you're going to have a much better time getting it through all the IT connections and all getting the people to sign off on it, because Salesforce is putting their own level of security on top of it.
So just to echo that, 2 points. One is, as you were thinking about data security in your organization, there are a lot of agentic tools out there, and there are people making the case, instead of using Agentforce, get a third-party AI platform and use that with the data from Salesforce. There is inherently a security risk in doing that because you're now introducing a new tool that has new weaknesses and new opportunities for mischief and bad intentioned actors there. But with Agentforce, you're remaining inside of the walls of Salesforce. So there is no additional security risks posed by it. And one other thing to say, what Jason just spoke about, which is the Einstein trust layer, which part of the policy there is absolutely no client or customer data is ever used for training the large language models. That has also been applied to all of Salesforce's AI tools. Things that are also like utilizing rules-based or predictive AI features. Also in those cases, Salesforce has made the blanket policy, no data from our clients gets used for any AI training purposes.
Great. All right, next question. How does this interface with the organization website and or a separate ticketing system?
Okay, so the example I showed you was we had the agent sort of embedded on top of an Experience Cloud site. And we do that because that's, the Experience Cloud site, it's a Salesforce product. It allows you to stand up externally facing, websites, if you will, but then have the ability to log into them and go into sort of data. So it's just sort of an easier way. It's all on the Salesforce platform, but that's not saying you can't take an Agentforce agent and stand it up wherever you want. You can throw it onto your website. You could throw it on anywhere you want internally. You could throw it into your, on your intranet if you wanted. You can also, the side plug for Agentforce is also, it works natively. Agentforce agents also work natively in Slack. So there's a whole idea of being able to use an agent inside of Slack, which is, you're already in that kind of text modality in Slack. So you can also then call an agent in there to do stuff. Really cool example. Maybe we'll do another webinar on that. But from a ticketing system, it depends where the data is. So the examples we're seeing now are, there'll be an external ticketing system. There's some that are on platform. There's some that are externally. But as long as the data can be gotten to from something like Data Cloud, ingested into Salesforce, you could use the agent to talk to any of that data. And then if you had an integration already that if you did some sort of ticketing item inside of Salesforce, that it would then go out to the ticketing system. Since the agent just works and feels and does things to your data inside of Salesforce like a human, meaning Salesforce doesn't see it any different that if an agent updates a record or if Jason Atwood updates a record. So then it would flow back out to your ticketing system. Actually, Berkeley, I mean, you're working on a couple of these now. You could actually answer a question.
No, I was going to say the same thing. It depends on the ticketing system, but a lot of times that data has already been moved into Salesforce. You can access the data in Salesforce. If you're asking, can it, I do the ticket purchase and then it push it over to that system, that's something you have to look into.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, physically, computer-wise, yes, it's. But think of that integration as a separate thing. But you would probably have already set that up, right? Because if your internal people are going to Salesforce to, let's say, add people to the tickets, and then it's talking to that external system, then the agent can do it as well because it's in Salesforce.
Yeah. And the next question, we actually kind of answered a part of it, but I'll ask it anyway.
Okay.
Agentforce must be used in conjunction with Experience Cloud, correct? If so, what is the general cost structure of Experience Cloud? Is it on a per contact basis, per Salesforce user basis?
So the answer to that is no. You do not need Experience Cloud to use Agentforce. Agentforce is built into everybody's Salesforce's. It's built into everybody's Salesforce org, if you will. And there's no prerequisite except for when you go to enable Agentforce. Remember, it is consumption. Please talk to your Salesforce AE about consumption-based pricing and how the pricing model works. But you can turn it on and it starts to use these credits that you're given, but it doesn't need any other product. The only thing you do have to enable, because of part of the setup, is to turn on Data Cloud. but that doesn't mean you're using Data Cloud to ingest data. You can actually turn on the Agentforce agent, the internal one, and use it without Experience Cloud or anything else for the internal one.
One thing I'll add that, and a use case in which Experience Cloud is required is if you want, if we're going back to the demo Jason just did, and Jason said, hi, like, here's my email. I want you to tell me some information about tickets that I already bought, or things like that, where you actually need to be referencing specific information inside Salesforce that you could align it to the person who's chatting with the agent, right? In which case, it's what you're kind of doing is you're replacing the portal experience as opposed to clicking around and looking for information inside it. You're replacing, now the agent essentially becomes the portal, right? The agent has the information. You can say, here's my email, here's my password, right? Same way you would for a login. Now, can you tell me about, my upcoming ticket reservations, right?
Yeah.
So that is one area in which Experience Cloud would be required. So, the agent can reference that specific contact information when talking to the person.
Yeah, so it already has, if you think about it, it already knows who you are. If you've logged into a Experience Cloud site, it already knows who you are. It knows who Jason Atwood is. So when I click on the agent, it doesn't go, who are you? It goes, oh, I know who you are. You're authenticated. I know that you're who you are. And now I can help you and look into your records and do all this sort of stuff. So yes, it's a great example.
Right. What are the limitations of Agentforce as it pertains to NPSP, both internal and external?
That's a good question. It has actually been asked of many times of our clients. So let's go back to basics. Agentforce is not product, industry, installed. It has nothing to it. It is agnostic to Salesforce in terms of like the actual product itself. It is agnostic. It can work in any cloud that I know of, and stop me if I'm wrong, but like it can work in Financial Services Cloud, it can work in Sales Cloud, Service Cloud. So if you think of NPSP, which is just an installed package on top of Sales and Service Cloud, it natively can work with it. And then to go deeper, right? Since Agentforce, the backend to the functionality of Agentforce is the data in Salesforce. Well, NPSP installs its data in Salesforce, and you can manipulate and work with records using flows, right? If you want to give it more specific functionality, you build flows. Well, flows work with NPSP. So there's nothing inherently saying that Agentforce doesn't work with NPSP at all. It does out of the box. If you want to enhance that, you certainly can. You can build out new functionality or things that work with NPSP as well. So there's no disconnect there because it works on every edition and every flavor of the industry clouds, including any installed packages.
Right. Can Agentforce read PDFs like contracts that may be in a Google Drive?
Yes. So I'm going to answer that two ways. Boy, I wish Scott was on the call because just to fact check me. Two things. In the newest version of Agentforce, pretty sure that's live now. So again, did not build the demo. If I had, it can actually take a document, meaning you can give Agentforce a document, like when you're chatting with it, like you can with ChatGPT. You say, here's this legal document. Can you do something with it? I think in the current version of Agentforce, you can actually upload a document to the agent and say, here, do something with this. Could be extract data and fill it out into a Salesforce record. That'd be great. So that's native of Agentforce. If it's not out now, it's out in minutes or by Dreamforce. Safe harbor, safe harbor, safe harbor. Make your buying decisions based on the current available features. The other side of that is things that are stored in Google Drive or SharePoint or just in PDFs or on your intranet or sitting in some folder somewhere. You can ingest that data in multiple ways into Agentforce to make the agent smarter. So like one of the things that we did at Arkus is we fed it all of our internal documentation around how to do everything. And so you can go into using our agent inside of Art and ask it any kind of HR question you want. What's the 401k plan? How do I take time off? What's an ARCI, or why do I, what is this? And it can answer any of those questions. And that way you can do that in two different ways. One, you can just actually upload them, like here's the PDFs, upload them, or you can use Data Cloud, and you can connect Data Cloud to a different source. So your SharePoint, your Google Drive, your Dropbox, your Box, whatever, and then ingest that data. So you can say, here, take this folder or take these 300 documents and ingest them in through Data Cloud, and then Agentforce can talk to that ingested and tokenized data. Sorry, I had to throw tokenized in there, but that's for Scott.
I'm going to skip the next question to come back to it. Does Agentforce use internally costs? Oh, does Agentforce used internally cost additional money?
So please speak to your Salesforce account executive about costs and licensing, but I'll answer from what I know. The internal version of Agentforce, meaning the one you saw me use on the internal, when I went in and I was logged into Salesforce, that internal, they call that internal Agentforce, the use of that, as far as I know from the last time I read a press release, that is actually free. They're not charging money for the usage of that internal agent. You guys confirm that? I think that is true, correct? I'm not.
I think that can be true.
Okay, it can be true. There you go. The external agent is consumption based, and again, that game and might have changed by the time this webinar started, so I'm not going to talk to it. But it is, we like to say it is, pennies on the dollar. And if you saw that interaction that I did with that agent and the amount of stuff that it could do for me, and the amount of time a human being would have had to do all that, it becomes very, very compelling.
Yep. All right. Can a use case?
I do know. Sorry, but I just want to add on. I do know that there are versions of licensing where you can have unlimited use for internal users as part of a type of license that you can get. I'm not sure. Again, you'd have to talk to your Salesforce AI about that. And then that is one way of doing it. And then there's another way of doing it that's kind of like, pennies per conversation kind of use as well.
They have different types of plans. They have like an all-you-can-eat plan for different types of agents. And so, yes, but please speak to your Salesforce account executive.
All right. Can a use case of Agentforce be to help build or edit flows in Salesforce?
So, Safe Harbor, I have seen demos of an agent that can build flows. And I don't know where I saw it or if it's live, so I won't. Like, that's where a Scott question, but I pretty much have seen that. I just don't know how live it is now. But yes, that is a good use case. And in fact, if you see where a lot of how you're interacting with Salesforce, I think you're going to see a future where a lot of your interaction with Salesforce is going to be through the guise of an agent, right? That will start and you end your day as opposed to being the side agent. It'll be like you'll be right in there with the agent, and that's where you'll start, and that's where you will work with your Salesforce data. That is definitely the path that everybody is going down.
Yeah, but I think that's actually the next question was, can Agentforce be used to create flows or create email templates or any help with setup? So
yes, yes, and there's already some of that live, but I would say wait for Dreamforce, but I think they'll be showing off a lot more agentification of the Salesforce platform, and it'll all be based on Agentforce.
Great. And
one thing I would just just one last thing I would just mention that is a more basic use which is absolutely live that I think a lot of organizations should consider is how you use an agent, maybe not quite yet to be building flows or creating these things for you, but to act as a sort of interactive user guide. Where if the agent understands, and you can upload the architecture and explanation of your Salesforce org into your agent, and it can actually act as a real-time assistant in terms of helping users understand how to use Salesforce. So.
And the last listed question here is, I'm assuming this is for you, Jason, Dolphins or Jets on Monday?
Oh, God, that's terrible. My poor 0-3 Jets going up against the even poorer 0-3 Dolphins on Monday night. I I think the New York Jets will walk away with their first win. That's what I'm saying. I'm putting it out there. Thanks,
There you
Steve, for that question.
All right, great. Well, that brings us to the end of our Q&A. I figure that's a good question to end it on. So I want to thank everyone for attending. Thanks, Andrew and Jason, for jumping in and leading our content. Just a reminder, after the webinar, you'll be presented with a survey for your feedback on this webinar. And your feedback is really a gift because it allows us to hone our messaging to provide you with the best experience. Plus, in line with our green initiatives, we will plant 5 trees for every survey completed to show our appreciation of your time. So we'll send a follow-up email shortly after this, which will give you a link to the recording. You can also visit our website, which has tons of blog content about Salesforce and our experiences. Again, our emails are pinned in the chat. So if you're interested in discussing Agentforce further or have any other questions you're considering about Salesforce, we're happy to jump on a call to discuss and help you think through the next step. So once again, thanks for spending this time with us, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Thank you.